My sister said I couldn't be her bridesmaid because I wasn't pretty enough. It's about the look, she said. So I bought a ticket to Bali with the money I saved on her gift. When I posted my trip photos, the comments flooded in, and so did her text full of rage. I never thought my own sister would break my heart the way she did. But here we are, and honestly, I'm kind of glad it happened because it led to the most incredible month of my life. Let me tell you how Emma, my supposedly loving older sister, taught me the most valuable lesson about self-worth I've ever learned. I'm Madeline, 26, and I work as a graphic designer for a mid-sized marketing firm in Portland. Emma is 29 and works in finance. We've always been close, or at least I thought we were. Growing up, she was the golden child, straight A's, captain of the cheerleading team, prom queen, the whole 9 yards. I was more of the artsy, introverted type who spent weekends reading or sketching instead of at parties. Don't get me wrong, I never felt bad about it. I liked who I was. Emma got engaged to her boyfriend Derek last August. Derek's a decent enough guy, works in real estate, makes good money. The moment she showed me her ring, she started gushing about her dream wedding planned for the following June. I immediately offered to help with anything she needed, and she seemed thrilled. We spent hours looking at venues, tasting cakes, and browsing Pinterest boards. I even offered to design her wedding invitations for free, which she loved. "Of course you'll be my maid of honor," she said one evening, while we were wedding dress shopping. I can't imagine anyone else standing beside me on the most important day of my life. I was over the moon. I started planning her bachelorette party, researching bridesmaid dresses, and even put together a whole spreadsheet of wedding planning tasks. I was completely invested in making her day perfect. The first red flag should have been when she started making little comments about my appearance. "You know, Madeline, you should really try contouring. It would make your cheekbones pop. Or have you considered growing your hair out? Long hair is so much more feminine." I brushed it off as pre-wedding stress. Emma had always been image conscious, and I figured she was just projecting her anxiety onto everyone around her. Things got worse when she insisted on a bridesmaid boot camp. She wanted all her bridesmaids to lose 10 to 12 pounds before the wedding. When I mentioned that I was happy with my body and didn't want to diet, she got this tight smile on her face. "Madeline, I just want everyone to look their best. This day has to be perfect. I should have seen the writing on the wall, but I loved my sister and wanted to support her. I agreed to eat healthier and work out more, though I had no intention of crash dieting." The breaking point came in March, 3 months before her June wedding. Emma had invited me over for what I thought was going to be a bridesmaid dress fitting. Instead, she sat me down on her pristine white couch with a serious expression. "Madeline, I need to talk to you about something important." "What's up?" I asked, settling in with my cup of coffee. "I've been thinking a lot about the wedding party, and I've made a difficult decision." She paused, looking everywhere except at me. "I don't think you should be my maid of honor anymore." My stomach dropped. "What? Why? Did I do something wrong? It's not about what you did. It's about the look I'm going for." She finally met my eyes, and I saw something in them I'd never seen before when she looked at me. Disappointment. My wedding photographer costs $5,000. The videographer is another $3,000. I'm spending a fortune on professional hair and makeup for everyone. This wedding is going to be featured in Portland Bride magazine. I stared at her, not understanding where this was going. "Madeline, you're my sister and I love you, but you're just not. Bridesmaid material. You don't photograph well. You've never been the glamorous type. I need my wedding party to look cohesive and polished. This wedding is going to be featured in Oregon Bride magazine." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Are you saying I'm not pretty enough to be in your wedding?" Emma's face flushed, but she didn't deny it. "I'm saying that this wedding is about creating a perfect day and perfect memories. I need bridesmaids who fit the aesthetic. Jessica, Amanda, and Claire all have that classic beauty look. They photograph well. They know how to do their makeup properly. They dress well." She gestured vaguely at my outfit, jeans, and a vintage band t-shirt. "You've always been more of a natural artsy type." I felt like I couldn't breathe. "Emma, I'm your sister, which is exactly why you'll understand. Family supports each other, right? I still want you at the wedding, obviously. You can sit in the front row and take pictures. Maybe you could even help coordinate things behind the scenes. You're so organized." The casual cruelty of it was breathtaking. She wanted me to be her free wedding coordinator, while her prettier friends got to stand beside her in the photos that would hang in her house forever. "I need some time to think about this," I managed to say. "Of course, I knew you'd understand." "This is why you're the best sister ever." She actually hugged me as I left, like she'd just done me a favor. I drove home in a complete daze. When I got to my apartment, I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror for a long time. I saw the same face I'd always seen. Brown eyes, freckles across my nose, shoulder-length auburn hair, a smile that people had always called warm. I wasn't a model, but I'd never thought I was ugly. I'd had boyfriends, including my current relationship with Jake, who told me I was beautiful every single day. But apparently, I wasn't pretty enough for my own sister's wedding. That night, I called our mom. She said, "What?" Mom's voice pitched higher with each word I repeated. She wants me to coordinate instead of being a bridesmaid because I don't fit her aesthetic. There was a long pause. "Madeline, honey, I'm so sorry. I don't even know what to say. That's not the daughter I raised. I don't know what to do, Mom. You don't do anything. You hold your head high and you remember that your worth isn't determined by your sister's opinion. And if I'm being honest, I think Emma has gotten so caught up in this wedding that she's lost sight of what actually matters." After we hung up, I sat in my living room and cried. Not just for the hurt, but for the loss of the relationship I thought I had with Emma. The sister I'd admired and looked up to my whole life had just told me I wasn't good enough to stand beside her on the most important day of her life. But as the tears dried, something else started building in my chest. Anger, not just at Emma, but at myself for considering, even for a second, that she might be right. I thought about all the money I already spent on her wedding. The engagement party I'd thrown for her and Derek, $350. The bridal shower I'd co-hosted, $280. The bachelorette party in Vegas I'd organized and partially funded, $750. Not to mention the bridesmaid dress I'd already ordered, $180. The wedding gift I'd been planning to buy from their registry. The $450 KitchenAid mixer she'd been gushing about for months. I added it all up. $210. Over $2,000 I'd spent celebrating a woman who thought I wasn't pretty enough to stand next to her in photos. That's when I had my moment of clarity. I went to my laptop and canceled the wedding gift order, full refund. Then I went to Emma's registry and looked at all the expensive items she'd picked out. The luxury bedding, the fancy dinnerware, the high-end appliances. I closed the laptop without buying anything. Instead, I opened a new browser tab and started looking at flights to Southeast Asia. I'd always wanted to travel solo, but never had the money or courage. Well, now I had the money, and Emma had definitely given me the courage. Bali looked incredible. White sand beaches, ancient temples, lush rice terraces, yoga retreats, incredible food. I could get a round-trip ticket and stay for 3 weeks for about $2,200, perfectly using up all the money I've been planning to spend on Emma's wedding celebrations. I booked the trip that night. The next morning, I called Emma to tell her about my decision to decline being her wedding coordinator. "What do you mean you can't help coordinate?" she asked. "I mean I won't be available. I'll be in Bali for 3 weeks starting the Monday before your wedding." There was silence. "Bali? You're going to miss my wedding for a vacation? Emma, you made it very clear that my presence isn't important to you. You don't want me in your wedding party, so I decided to treat myself to something that will actually make me happy. But you're my sister. Of course, your presence is important enough to stand beside you." Another silence. "I thought so," I said. "Have a beautiful wedding, Emma. I'm sure your aesthetic will be perfect." I hung up before she could respond. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. I got my visa, bought travel gear, researched activities, and booked accommodations. I also requested 3 weeks of vacation time from my job. Thankfully, I've been saving up my days for something special, though I never imagined it would be this. I started working out more and eating better, not for Emma's aesthetic, but because I wanted to feel strong and confident for my solo adventure. Jake was incredibly supportive. "I'm proud of you for choosing yourself," he said. "What Emma said was inexcusable. You deserve so much better." My parents were torn. They understood my decision, but worried about the family drama it would cause. I told them I understood their position, but I wasn't going to pretend to be okay with Emma's treatment just to keep the peace. Word about my Bali trip started spreading through our extended family and friend circles. My cousin Maria called me outraged on my behalf. Emma did what? Are you kidding me? Madeline, you're gorgeous. And even if you weren't, you're her sister. My college roommate Ashley was even more blunt when I told her the story over drinks. Emma has always been jealous of you. You know that, right? You have this effortless, natural beauty and artistic talent that she's never had. She's always had to work twice as hard for everything. The perfect grades, the perfect body, the perfect boyfriend. You just are who you are without all the effort, and it probably drives her crazy. I'd never thought about it that way. Growing up, I'd always seen Emma as the successful one, the one who had everything together, but Ashley made me think about how much pressure Emma put on herself to be perfect in every area of her life. That doesn't excuse what she said, Ashley continued, but it explains it. She's probably been resenting you for years, and the wedding stress just gave her an excuse to finally say what she's been thinking. That conversation made me realize that Emma's cruelty might have been building for a long time. I started thinking back to subtle comments she'd made over the years, the way she'd helpfully suggest I try different makeup techniques or clothing styles, how she'd always introduced me as her artsy little sister with a tone that made it sound like a limitation rather than a strength. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became, not just at Emma, but at myself for not recognizing the pattern sooner. I'd been so focused on supporting her and maintaining our relationship that I'd ignored all the little ways she'd been undermining my confidence for years. Meanwhile, Emma was clearly not handling my absence well. She kept trying to get information about my trip through our parents and mutual friends. Mom told me that Emma had called several times, asking when exactly I was leaving and whether I was really going through with this. She seems genuinely panicked that you won't be there, Mom said during one of our phone conversations. I think she expected you to cave and agree to coordinate after all. Well, she was wrong, I replied. I was getting a pedicure, treating myself to some pre-trip pampering. I'm not changing my mind. 2 weeks before the wedding, Emma showed up at my apartment unannounced. I was in the middle of packing when I heard the doorbell. When I opened the door and saw her standing there with red eyes and a fake smile, my stomach dropped. Hi, Madeline. Can we talk? I considered not letting her in, but curiosity went out. Sure. She sat on my couch and looked around at my open suitcase and travel gear scattered across the living room. So, you're really doing this? Yes, I'm really doing this, Madeline. I've been thinking about our conversation, and I realize I might have come across the wrong way. I wasn't trying to say you're not beautiful. You know, I think you're beautiful. I was just stressed about the photos and the magazine feature and everything. You understand, right? I stared at her. Even now, she couldn't admit what she'd actually said. Emma, you told me I don't photograph well and that I'm not bridesmaid material. You said you needed bridesmaids who fit your aesthetic. What exactly do you think that meant? She looked uncomfortable. I just meant that the photographer has a very specific style, and I wanted to make sure everyone looked cohesive in the photos. It wasn't personal. How is telling your sister she's not pretty enough to be in your wedding party not personal? I never said you weren't pretty enough. You said I don't photograph well. I'm not glamorous, and I don't fit your aesthetic. What's the difference? Emma's facade started cracking. The difference is that this is my wedding. My one day to have everything exactly how I want it. I'm spending a fortune on this, and I deserve to have my vision come true. And your vision doesn't include your sister. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. You offered to let me coordinate behind the scenes instead. You wanted me to be your free wedding planner while your prettier friends got to be in the photos. Emma's face flushed. Fine. Yes. I wanted my bridesmaids to look a certain way. Is that such a crime? It's my wedding. There it was. The truth finally came out when she was angry enough to stop pretending. Thank you for being honest, I said calmly. Now, please leave. Madeline, wait. I didn't mean it like that. I'm just stressed. And Emma, you meant exactly what you said. You think your friends are prettier than me, and you didn't want me in your photos because of it. I understand completely. That's why I'm going to Bali instead of your wedding. She started crying then. Real tears, not the fake ones from her entrance. You can't miss my wedding over this. You're my sister. What am I supposed to tell people when they ask where you are? Tell them I'm living my best life in paradise. This is so selfish, Madeline. You're ruining my special day. I'm not ruining anything. I'm just not participating in an event where I'm not wanted. Emma left in a huff, slamming my door behind her. I felt shaky, but proud of myself for not backing down. An hour later, she texted me. I hope you know you're breaking Mom's heart with this stunt. I called Mom immediately. Emma just left here, and now she's texting me that I'm breaking your heart. Is that true? Mom sighed. Oh, honey, no. I mean, I wish you girls could work this out, but I'm not heartbroken. I'm disappointed in Emma's behavior, honestly. Your father and I talked about it, and we both think she crossed a line. She just came over and finally admitted that she thinks her friends are prettier than me, and that's why she doesn't want me in the photos. She said that when I pushed her to be honest, yes, there was a long pause. Madeline, I'm so sorry. I raised her better than that. I know you did, Mom. But she's an adult making her own choices now. The final weeks before my trip were peaceful. I finished all my work projects, arranged for my neighbor to water my plants, and mentally prepared for my adventure. I started a travel journal, bought a new camera, and even splurged on some beautiful dresses for the trip, not because I needed to prove anything to anyone, but because I wanted to feel amazing. Jake helped me pack the night before I left. I'm going to miss you so much, he said, folding my sundresses carefully into my suitcase. It's only 3 weeks. I know, but this feels like such a big moment for you. Like you're becoming a new version of yourself. He was right. I could feel something shifting inside me. The old Madeline, who would have eventually caved to Emma's demands and shown up to coordinate her wedding, was gone. This new Madeline was choosing herself, her happiness, and her self-respect. The morning I left for the airport, I got one final text from Emma. Last chance to do the right thing. I turned off my phone without responding. The flight to Bali was long but magical. I'd never traveled alone internationally before, and every moment felt like an adventure. I chatted with other travelers, read 2 entire books, and watched the sunrise from 35,000 feet. When we landed in Dasar, I felt like I was entering a completely new chapter of my life. My first Instagram post from Bali was simple, just a photo of my feet in the sand with the caption, "Made it to paradise. Solo adventure officially begins. Palm tree emoji." Within an hour, it had 50 likes and a dozen comments from friends saying they were living vicariously through me. The resort in Seminyak was more beautiful than I'd imagined. My room had a private terrace overlooking the ocean, and I spent my first evening just sitting there watching the sunset, feeling incredibly proud of myself for being there. That first week flew by in a blur of new experiences. I took a sunrise yoga class on the beach every morning, spent afternoons reading by the pool or exploring local markets, and tried a new restaurant every night. I got a traditional Balinese massage, learned to make authentic nasi goreng in a cooking class, and even tried my hand at surfing. But the most transformative part wasn't the activities. It was the way I felt about myself. Away from Emma's criticism and judgment, I started seeing myself through fresh eyes. The other travelers I met were so warm and welcoming, constantly complimenting my adventurous spirit and positive energy. The local people were incredibly kind, often telling me I had a beautiful smile or peaceful aura. One evening, I was having dinner at a beachfront restaurant when a woman at the next table leaned over. "I hope you don't mind me saying, but you have such a radiant energy. Are you celebrating something special?" "Just celebrating myself, I guess," I said, and realized how true that felt. "Well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. You're absolutely glowing." I started posting more frequently, sharing photos of temples I visited, food I tried, and adventures I went on. Each post got more engagement than the last, with friends and acquaintances commenting about how happy and beautiful I looked. When I moved to Ubud for my second week, I felt like a completely different person than the one who had boarded the plane in Portland. I was tan, relaxed, confident, and genuinely happy in a way I hadn't been in months. I signed up for a photography workshop and learned techniques that made my travel photos even more stunning. It was in Ubud that I met Christina, a travel blogger from Australia who became a fast friend. She looked at my Instagram account one evening over dinner and shook her head in amazement. "Your engagement is incredible," she said, "and your photos are gorgeous. Have you considered starting a travel blog?" "I'm a graphic designer, not a writer. You're clearly a natural at this. Look at these captions. They're inspiring without being cheesy. And your photo composition is really good. That conversation planted a seed that would grow into something bigger after I returned home. The third week in the Gili Islands was pure magic. The water was the clearest I'd ever seen. The beaches were pristine, and I felt completely at peace with my decision to be there instead of at Emma's wedding. I'd made friends from different countries, had incredible adventures, and most importantly, had fallen back in love with myself. It was on Gili Trawangan that I took the photo that would change everything. The sunset beach shot in the white dress that I posted on Emma's wedding day. I almost didn't share it because it felt almost too beautiful, too perfect. But something told me to post it with that caption about choosing yourself, and I'm so glad I did. The response was immediate and overwhelming. People weren't just liking the photo, so they were sharing it, commenting with paragraphs about how inspiring it was, and messaging me privately to tell me their own stories of choosing themselves over toxic family members or friends. The week before Emma's wedding, I posted a photo on Instagram of my boarding pass with a caption, "Solo adventure begins now. 3 weeks in paradise." I tagged Bali and added hashtags about solo travel and self-love. The responses were overwhelmingly positive. Friends commented about how brave I was, how jealous they were, how they wanted to plan their own solo trips. It felt good to see so much support. Bali exceeded every expectation. I stayed in a beautiful resort in Seminyak for the first week, then moved to Ubud for a more cultural experience, and finished my trip in the Gili Islands for some serious beach time. I did yoga at sunrise, got massages on the beach, took a cooking class, visited ancient temples, hiked through rice paddies, went snorkeling, learned to surf, and ate the most incredible food. I met amazing people from all over the world and had conversations that lasted until dawn. But more than the activities, it was the feeling of complete freedom and self-acceptance that made the trip magical. I felt beautiful in a way I hadn't in months. Not because of how I looked, but because of how I felt. Strong, independent, adventurous, capable. I posted photos regularly throughout my trip. Sunset shots from yoga sessions, pictures of colorful temple offerings, me laughing with new friends over dinner, surfing shots that Jake helped me caption with humor, photos of the incredible food, and scenic shots of rice terraces and beaches that looked like postcards. The response grew steadily. Each post got more likes and comments than I'd ever received before. By the end of my first week, my posts were getting 100 to 200 likes each, with friends and acquaintances commenting about how amazing I looked and how jealous they were of my adventure. People started sharing my posts in their stories and tagging friends they thought would be inspired by solo travel on what would have been Emma's wedding day, Saturday, June 15th. I posted a photo of myself at sunset on a pristine beach in Gili Trawangan. I was wearing a flowing white dress I'd bought at a local market. My skin was golden from 3 weeks of sun, my hair in natural beach waves, and I was genuinely smiling. I looked relaxed and radiant in a way I'd never seen in photos of myself before. The caption read, "Sometimes the best decision is choosing yourself. 3 weeks of solo travel in paradise has reminded me that beauty comes from feeling confident, adventurous, and free. Grateful for this incredible journey and all the amazing people I've met along the way. Hashtag Bali vibes. Hash solo travel. Hash I'm choosing. Myself. Wanderlust. Beautiful life." Within 2 hours, that post had more likes and comments than anything I'd ever shared. Friends, coworkers, acquaintances, even people I barely knew were commenting, "You look absolutely radiant. This is the most beautiful I've ever seen you. Goals. You're glowing. What an inspiration." The engagement kept growing throughout the day as people shared it and tagged others. That's when the texts from Emma started. I had unblocked her number the day before, curious to see if she would reach out on her wedding day. The first one came at 11:00 p.m., Bali time, 8:00 a.m., Portland time, right after her wedding ceremony would have ended. "Really? You're posting beach photos on my wedding day? Then, do you have any idea how selfish you're being?" Followed by, "Mom and Dad are so disappointed in you." And then, "Everyone keeps asking where you are, and I have to explain that my sister chose a vacation over my wedding." I didn't respond to any of them. I was having dinner with a group of travelers I'd met, and we were laughing about our worst travel stories. I wasn't going to let Emma's negativity penetrate my bubble of happiness, but she wasn't done. The next morning, I woke up to a series of increasingly angry messages. Your little social media stunt is embarrassing our whole family. Jessica showed me your Instagram. You're really going to pretend like you're some kind of travel influencer now? You look desperate for attention. Everyone can see what you're doing. You're trying to make me look bad on my wedding day. This is so immature, Madeline. You're 26 years old. And then the message that made me actually laugh out loud. You know what? I'm glad you weren't in my wedding. You clearly don't know how to be supportive or put family first. Derek said his sister would never pull something like this. I screenshotted that last message and showed it to my new Australian friend, Katie, over breakfast. Your sister sounds like a piece of work, she said. You dodged a bullet not being in that wedding. The messages continued throughout the day. Emma was clearly obsessing over my social media presence instead of enjoying her honeymoon. Each text was angrier than the last, accusing me of everything from jealousy to attention-seeking to deliberately trying to ruin her special day. I finally responded with a single message. Emma, I'm sorry you're not enjoying your honeymoon. I hope when you get back, you can reflect on how we got to this point. I love you, but I won't accept being treated as less than. Enjoy married life. Then I blocked her number again and went snorkeling. The Instagram post from Emma's wedding day continued to gain traction throughout my remaining week in Bali. By the time I flew home, it had over 400 likes and 75 comments. People were sharing it in their stories and tagging friends. A few travel bloggers even reached out asking about my itinerary. But the best part wasn't the social media attention. It was how I felt about myself. 3 weeks of solo travel had reminded me who I was outside of my family's opinions. I was capable, adventurous, intelligent, and yes, beautiful. Not because I fit some narrow standard of conventional attractiveness, but because I was living authentically and fearlessly. When I got back to Portland, Jake picked me up from the airport with flowers. You look incredible, he said, spinning me around. Like, seriously, you're glowing. I feel incredible, I told him, and I meant it. My parents came over for dinner the next night. Mom hugged me tight and said, I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Emma called during the honeymoon, and honestly, she sounded unhinged. She kept talking about your Instagram posts instead of her own wedding. She's hurt, Dad said diplomatically. But what she said to you was wrong. No sister should ever make another sister feel that way. The full fallout came when Emma returned from her honeymoon. She'd apparently spent a good portion of her time in Mexico, checking social media and getting increasingly angry about the positive response to my travel posts. When she got back, she called my mom crying. Madeline is trying to upstage me, she sobbed. She planned this whole trip to get attention on my wedding day. Look at all the comments on her photos. People are acting like she's some kind of inspiration when she abandoned her family. Mom, to her credit, didn't coddle her. Emma, Madeline went on that trip because you told her she wasn't pretty enough to be in your wedding. If you wanted her there, you shouldn't have been so cruel. I never said she wasn't pretty enough. You said she didn't fit your aesthetic and couldn't be in the photos. What exactly did you think that meant? The conversation apparently went downhill from there, with Emma accusing everyone of taking my side and not understanding how stressful wedding planning had been. 2 weeks after she returned, Emma finally reached out to me directly. She'd unblocked herself and sent a long text message. Madeline, I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened. I know you're angry, and maybe I could have handled things better, but you have to understand the pressure I was under. This wedding cost us $60,000. I needed everything to be perfect. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was just trying to make good decisions for my big day. I think we both said things we didn't mean, and I'm willing to forgive you for missing my wedding, if you're willing to forgive me for the bridesmaid situation. Can we please just move past this? I miss my sister. I stared at that message for a long time. Even in her attempt at reconciliation, she was making it about her stress, her wedding, her needs. She was willing to forgive me for choosing not to attend an event where I'd been told I wasn't good enough to participate. I called Jake before responding. What do you think I should do? What do you want to do? He asked gently. I want my sister back, but I want the sister who would never have said those things to me in the first place. Maybe this is an opportunity to set some boundaries, he said, and see if she's willing to actually change. I thought about that conversation for days before responding to Emma. When I finally did, I kept it simple. Emma, I love you and I want to have a relationship with you. But that requires you to understand why what you said was so hurtful and to genuinely apologize for it. You didn't just exclude me from your wedding party. You told me I wasn't attractive enough to be in your photos. That's not about wedding stress. That's about how you see me as a person. If you want to rebuild our relationship, we need to start with honesty about what actually happened. Her response came quickly. I apologized. I said I could have handled it better. What more do you want from me? And that's when I realized Emma genuinely didn't understand what she'd done wrong. In her mind, she'd made a reasonable decision about her wedding aesthetic, and I'd overreacted by choosing to travel instead of attending. I decided to give her one more chance to understand. I sent her the Instagram post from her wedding day, along with screenshots of some of the comments. This is what people said about how I looked on your wedding day. These are people who know both of us. Do you still think I wasn't pretty enough to be in your photos? She never responded to that message. It's been 6 months since Emma's wedding, and we still aren't really speaking. We exchange pleasantries at family gatherings, but the closeness we once had is gone. It makes me sad, but I'm not willing to pretend her behavior was acceptable just to maintain a relationship. The unexpected silver lining is how much that trip changed my perspective on everything. I continued traveling solo, taking weekend trips around the Pacific Northwest, and planning another international adventure for next year. I started a travel Instagram account that now has over 1,200 followers, a modest but engaged community of people interested in solo travel and self-empowerment. I even picked up some freelance work designing travel guides and social media content for local tourism companies. More importantly, I learned to trust my own judgment about my worth. Emma's opinion of my appearance says nothing about me and everything about her insecurities and priorities. The hundreds of people who commented on my travel photos telling me I looked beautiful and inspiring aren't wrong. The way Jake looks at me every day isn't fake. The confidence I feel in my own skin isn't an illusion. A few weeks ago, I ran into Jessica, one of Emma's bridesmaids, at a coffee shop. She looked genuinely uncomfortable when she saw me. Madeline, hi, how are you? I'm great, Jessica. How are you? Good, good. I just wanted to say I felt really bad about what happened with the wedding. Emma was so stressed, and I think she made some decisions she probably regrets now. I appreciated that she was trying to be diplomatic. I hope she's happy, I said, and I meant it. She is, but I don't know. Things haven't been the same in our friend group since then. A few of us felt really uncomfortable with how she handled everything with you. Interesting, I said with a small smile. Emma's quest for the perfect aesthetic apparently had consequences beyond just losing her relationship with me. Well, I hope things work out for everyone, I added, and I hope Emma learned something from it all. Jessica nodded. Your travel photos looked amazing, by the way. You seem so happy. I am. And that's the truth. Emma wanted a perfect wedding with perfect photos and perfect memories. She got that, as far as I know. The professional photos from her wedding were beautiful. She looked stunning. Derrick looked happy. And her chosen bridesmaids all fit her aesthetic perfectly. But I got something better. I got self-respect, adventure, confidence, and the knowledge that I don't need anyone's permission to be beautiful or worthy of love and celebration. Sometimes I wonder if Emma ever looks at those perfect wedding photos and thinks about the sister who isn't in any of them. I wonder if she regrets choosing aesthetics over family, perfection over love. But mostly, I don't think about Emma's wedding at all anymore. I'm too busy planning my next adventure and living a life that makes me feel beautiful inside and out. The best revenge, it turns out, isn't plotting against someone who hurt you. It's living so well that their opinion becomes irrelevant. Emma thought I wasn't pretty enough for her perfect day, but Bali taught me that I'm beautiful enough for my own perfect life. And that's a lesson worth more than any bridesmaid dress.